Hi there, and welcome back to the Hub of Junior Golf Podcast. I'm Ryan Burr, joined as always by the founder of the Junior Golf Hub, Roger Nick. Roger, in that awkward time of year, so to speak, a lot of high school golf, certainly in the fall going on. The weather certainly changing in a hurry. Extremely warm fall, and then eventually that the clock is going to strike midnight on that, and colder temperatures are going to arrive. That, of course, means more and more people heading inside. Not necessarily a death sentence to your golf game. Certainly indoor golf is massively on the rise around the world, but also, do you have an opinion on how you can utilize indoor golf to actually make you better when you're practicing inside with certainly machines and different things?
Yeah, Ryan, I mean, it's certainly getting colder, that's for sure. Waking up to a nice little frost this morning here in the Northeast. But yeah, I mean, this is a perfect time of year, I think, for most people to kind of reflect on how their summer went, how their fall went, and create get an assessment of their game. I would say go get your local PDI coach to do an assessment and create a plan for the winter. I see and have been doing indoor-outdoor coaching now for 20 plus years. Most of our players, especially in our academy, will get better during the winter time, not get worse, right? I mean, technology is great, but it's all about the environment that you put kids in, or put players in. It's not necessarily kids, but put players in to learn, right? So how are you going to learn physical stuff, mental stuff? What is blocking you? What did you find out from your assessment of your game from the summer, right? What were the stats saying? Well, how'd you feel physically? How'd you feel mentally? So there's so much to work on during the winter time when you might be indoors, that if you actually put the effort in is very advantageous. But I also say, make sure you get a nice rest, get a nice break. There's no reason to overexert, if you will, and burn out. So for a junior golfer, I know that's one of the things that we hear a lot from parents going, oh my God, I got to get down to Florida and work on my game because everyone else. Well, we also see the states where sunshine is abundant in the winter, where we see a lot of the kids who are complaining about burnout because all they do is go play. They're always under the stress of a tournament or stress of competing for a score, and not giving themselves enough break physically and mentally to focus on the real things, the things that are going to really matter long term. So,
well, I don't think I've ever heard you say that. So, let's discuss that a little bit, because certainly that would be another F on my report card about a built-in vacation, so to speak. That's more than a couple days when you travel for Thanksgiving or Christmas or the holidays. So, is there an appropriate time off for a junior? We're talking, 12 to 18, 11 to 18. Your players at the academy that are there, is there days, weeks that they will not hit a golf ball?
Oh, there'll definitely be days. I wouldn't say weeks, but it's also up to them, right? So depending on where they are. So you just talked about a pretty large gamut and a spread between 12 and 18, right? So it really depends on where they are developmentally. It depends on where they are with golf being their priority sport. We certainly encourage all of our young athletes to play multiple sports up until the time that they really say, hey, golf is my primary sport. So we want them out developing hand-eye coordination, working on physical literacy, if you will, understanding how important that is overall to development, is really critical. So I would say our younger players, yeah, we want them to take a good break from golf, right? But that doesn't mean they're taking a break. They might be working on technical stuff. They may be working on physical stuff. They're working on mental stuff. Most importantly, during the school year time, they're working on school and academics. We know for those who are college bound, and most kids today are, they are looking at, how are they going to do their academics and get good grades, because that's the number one reason they're going to get into the best schools that they want to go to. It's not about recruiting from a golf perspective. right? It's helps, but it doesn't mean it's the end all be all. So be a good student first and foremost, be a good athlete, and then be a really great golfer.
We also, on this podcast, we've heard so many coaches on both the men's and women's game talk about how important speed is, how important distance is. There are some coaches that it is a prerequisite to play in their program, that you have to have a certain amount of speed just because of golf courses that are 77, 7,800 now in the college game. And you have to have that off the tee, or it's nearly impossible to compete. What about taking, I don't want to say the cold months, but obviously you have a plan with everything working together, but do you believe that distance can be gained through working out and through programs that you've designed, that you can maybe cut back the amount of time hitting balls and pour that into the physical side and try to see gains in the distance and speed department?
Oh, absolutely. I would say that's it's actually critical to be a better athlete, to then gain speed in your golf swing, right? There are windows of opportunity, science-based understanding between, how the development happens with adolescents. And we want to make sure that we're hitting those windows of opportunities, if you will, from a physical and neurological standpoint, because otherwise you're going to just, put skill on top of development, and that can hinder speed development. So we're really big on understanding how much we need to actually develop the athlete and put them in an environment that's going to create those speed windows, if you will, meaning ground force is a huge topic right now, right? Everybody's talking about, oh, you got to use the ground. Well, we use the ground walking, we use the ground sitting, we use the ground all the time. It's just, how do we use the ground is going to be the most important thing. And some people don't use the ground really well because they end up compensating because they don't really have the athletic base or the physical literacy neurologically to actually use it well. So and a good example is we see a lot of young golfers going out working on technique, and their parents are really so focused on getting them better at technical stuff, in golf skill stuff. In fact, they should be working on the physical literacy stuff, right? Because that's going to enhance the ability to acquire skill later on when it's actually going to be needed. So when they actually look at speed, that's developed early, right? Meaning that, hey, if I'm going to throw a ball, if I'm going to swing a bat, if I'm going to swing a racket, I'm going to swing any of those, it's really critical to do those things early, and do it with a golf club that's appropriate weight for them so they move it fast. So their neurological system develops in that way, versus I'm going to do something with a heavy golf club, I'm going to do something very slow and only focus on technique. That hinders the speed development window or those opportunities, right? So yeah, I mean, during the wintertime, work as hard as you can to get physically better and do it right, and do it with a good professional. And I know that we have several professionals out there now certified in PDI and player development solutions, and that they will be critical for helping young players develop speed.
All right, so you say did you say ground force literacy, or did you say what was the literacy one?
Physical literacy.
Physical literacy, okay.
Yeah.
I'm obviously illiterate. When you're talking,
we won't say that, Ryan. That's not fair.
When you're talking to a kid, how in the world can they understand ground force?
Well, we don't try to help them understand ground forces. We actually put them in the environment to do it, right? So throwing a ball, for example, a long way. Like we'll use footballs, for example, to have our kids just throw balls back and forth to each other. Just play catch, right? Just play catch. And then we move that further and further away from each other. So now all of a sudden, they're learning how to leverage the ground to throw the ball as far as they possibly can. Or we may, use wall ball, for example, and use hey, throw the ball. How far can it bounce off the wall? Those types of things really helps them learn ground forces and what it does when they actually do it appropriate. The other number one thing that we see a lot of our kids not doing well these days, and this is general population as well, most kids don't know how to skip, and they don't know how to throw or catch, which is actually kind of sad when you think about it. Skipping is a very fundamental movement, if you will, in the sense of motor patterning. So learning how to skip appropriately really helps kids learn how to use ground forces to move the arms and legs in the appropriate sequence, which in fact is the same sequence in which you would want to swing your golf club or a baseball bat or a tennis racket. So it's those things that will put them in the environment to learn, not kind of tell them about ground forces. Because to me, this idea that we're teaching to ground forces that I hear a lot of golf coaches talk about is one of the worst things that's going on in our game.
Okay, we'll stop down there. Michael, having trouble, it's asking for a Google login.
I don't think she's.
Can we resend it?
Yeah, my guess is she's not. Is there not the vid? Well, we clicked on the video link, so she should have the video link.
Google login. I mean.
Hmm. All right, I just.
There she is.
Hey, sorry about that.
That's okay.
That's all right.
I don't well, it's a little embarrassing to say, but when it asked me to use my Google account, my work computer, I don't know what my password is.
Of course.
So, like, thank God
Hey,
I brought my iPad to the office.
I think it was
today.
USGA 123.
I know the feeling, Heather. I know the feeling.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Okay, we'll start right back up. We've gone for about 10 minutes. We'll start right back up, and we'll bring you in, Heather.
Okay, perfect. Sounds good.
We good, Michael? Okay. We'll pick it up in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Well, that certainly is a great point, Roger, and someone that certainly could continue that conversation of development is Heather Daly-Donofrio, the leads the USGA in their national player development program that has been a huge success. Heather, thanks so much for joining the Hub of Junior Golf podcast. And let's just start off with a simple update on the program, an update on you and how long we've been at it and the gains that we've seen.
Terrific. Thank you, Ryan and Roger. It's a pleasure to be with you today. As you know, about 2 years ago, the United States was the only country, globally with golfers that ranked into high levels that didn't have a national development program. And golf was virtually the only Olympic sport in the United States that didn't have a national development program. So, we launched our strategy in February of 23. 2024 was the first year we actually had athletes in our program. And we fast forward to this year in 2025, we'll have more than 500 athletes who are benefiting in some way through the U.S. National Development Program, whether it's through our national teams, through our state team programs, through our grant program, or through our collaboration with the LPGA, where we identify kids at the local level to compete in LPGA tournaments. So we're growing really quickly. We expect that 500 to be 1,000 by the time we get to Pebble Beach in 2027, with the ultimate goal of having 2,000 athletes a year come through the program, based on our various programs that we've put together as players develop from the state level all the way up to the professional level.
Heather, that's great. I love to hear the growth of the program, and I know under your stewardship, it's only going to grow and get better. So we're really excited about what we're going to see. We get all the time the question from parents, is what is the criteria? I know we can go online and hear it, but our audience who's listening would
Mhm.
really love to hear maybe some of the criteria that goes into that selection process.
Yeah, great question, Roger. And I think it depends, where the athlete is and what part of the program they're interested in. So we do have a golf resume form that you can find on our website on usga.org. And we do ask athletes as a first step to fill out that golf resume. Once we receive that resume, we do evaluate the resume and keep that athlete in mind for opportunities throughout the program. So I would say that that's step one. If it's an athlete who's competing at a pretty high level already, right? So a junior boy with a handicap of 2.4, a girl with 5.4, whose family may lack some financial resources to help them in their development for whether it's tournaments or training or facilities. We do encourage them to apply for a grant. That application is open for this year only till October 31st. But athletes can get on our website, fill out a pre-screening form to see if they're eligible to apply for that grant. We had 109 players from 31 states. In the grant program in 2025, we're looking to have 125 athletes in the program next year. And then obviously our state team program is building. It started small. We started with 7 pilot states. We now are going to have 30 states in the state team program starting in 2026. So again, encourage athletes and families to go onto the website, and we have the states who have programs listed on the website, and then who to contact from those states. And a lot of the states are in the process of still kind of putting their criteria together. We give them some guidelines and some structure around how they can determine who their state athletes are. But ultimately, it's up to the state committee to decide that. And again, there's links on our website, to each state team, so athletes can figure out how they can play their way onto those teams. And then finally, for our national team, we look at a variety of factors. So we do look at obviously playing record, ranking, scores, but we also look at sportsmanship. We also look at athletes who are open to our help, who want to get better, and who want to continue through that pipeline. So that's a conversation with athletes. So we scout, we go see them play in person. We meet with their parents. We meet with them to see if it's a right fit, because as you, Roger and Ryan, know, like, so many of these kids who are already at the elite level have their own teams.
Mhm.
And so the program might not be right for everybody, and that's okay. And we'll support athletes in the way where we can help them and find the gaps and fill those gaps. So again, it depends on what area of the program an athlete is looking to get into and where they are at their stage in development.
Yeah, that's
Well-
really good. Heather, I've got one other question, because this was another one that just happened this morning to me.
Okay.
So I had a young female player, really good player, who is not sure what she wants to do. But the question is, if I want to go in the national program, I have to go to college? Can I, because she's in this window where she's not sure she actually wants to go to college. She wants to possibly go right out and try to play and qualify on the LPGA tour. And, I'm telling her parents, I'm not sure, but I'm actually going to have you on a podcast. I would ask that question. So I think that's probably a question out there more so than just this one-off. But do you have to, plan to go to college to get selected for the national program?
No, you don't. So we've got a variety. Our athletes are all who are on our national junior team, and even who are on our elite program. They all have their own goals and dreams and their own timelines, and we support each athlete individually based on their timeline. So I personally am always a proponent of education. I just think it's great to have a college degree. Just in case golf doesn't work out. There have been some good examples of athletes who have turned professional and still gone to college. So I also think that's a good possibility. But we do have players, for example, Gianna Clement, who's she's on our elite amateur program, but still a junior by age. And she just made it through the second stage of LPGA Q school, and now she'll be faced with a decision of whether she wants to turn pro for the final stage or not. And we will support her on whichever journey she decides to take, whether it's turning professional now or going to college. We have a couple of athletes actually who are in our grant program who are not going to college and are kind of in that position where they're deciding, should I go to college? Should I turn professional? So certainly we want to help those athletes who do want to play in college get to college and continue in their golf careers, but certainly are also equally as supportive of athletes who want to choose a different path.
Mm-hmm.
So Heather, let's hit the timeline. What is your youngest boy or girl? And then I assume, I know this is still just getting going, but this would go all the way and support a player all the way through college or amateur golf. And then when that decision is made to turn pro, that terminates the help and relationship?
So the youngest players that we have in our program are 13. So we don't go below the age of 13. And that would be for our grant program. On our national team, I think our youngest player maybe just turned 16, but we will go as young as 14 for the national junior team. We do require our athletes, we're trying to get them to travel on their own. So if you go too young, it gets a little bit more complicated. But the program, as it's spec'd out now, it can, players can start in the grant program or at the state team level. Graduate, not all of them are going to graduate to the national junior team or the elite amateur team, but there's ability to kind of play your way in and frankly, play your way out. And right now we don't have a young professional program, but we will be starting in a small way next year with some female professionals. Where we'll start working with some players on the Epson tour. So most national programs do continue to support their players into their first, 4 or 5 years of professional golf. And in many cases, some of these professionals are still working with their national coaches. I believe Anna Nordquist still works with the coaches from Sweden.
Mm-hmm.
Minji Lee, Hannah Green still work with the national coaches in Australia. So, that's part of what these federations do so well is they build those relationships with the athletes at a very young age. They nurture those relationships. They support their athletes, all the way through their journeys with the hopes too that, once the players are established on the professional tours, they'll come back, and mentor some of the younger players who are coming through the program.
Heather, we were just before you came on, Ryan and I were just in a really good discussion about player development and development of the young athlete and what it is. And I know you and I've had multiple conversations about long-term development and what that looks like and the values of, young athletes playing other sports before they kind of pick golf as their primary sport. You've had a very interesting background. You've had obviously very successful in your career, successful as a player, as a college athlete as well. Tell us a little bit about what you believe and what you believe is a really good pathway for young athletes to go through this journey, if you will.
Yeah, Roger, I love that you mentioned, playing other sports because I really feel like that is critically important. I came to golf late. I didn't start playing till I was 15, but I was a competitive swimmer from the age of 6 or 7, played baseball, played basketball, so played a lot of sports. But I know had I not been a competitive swimmer all those years, I would not have been as good a golfer as I was because it just provided me with a foundation of flexibility, of strength, of cardiovascular, right? You don't think you need good cardiovascular strength for golf, but you do. So I am a huge proponent, and we are here at the USNDP of athletes playing other sports. We ask in our grant application if athletes are playing other sports, whether recreationally or on a competitive team. And so we do look at that. I think, this early specialization, I'm not a big fan of that. I know it works for some athletes, right? I mean, there's plenty of stories of professional players who, we're winning golf tournaments when they were 6 or 7, but our whole philosophy is developing athletes who thrive. And that's, we want them to be great golfers, but we also want them to be, well-balanced people and be happy and healthy off of the golf course. So we are coming out, we've been doing some research on periodization and looking at the American development model, and we will be coming out with some resources, hopefully at the top of the year on that. I mean, I think what we're finding is the junior golfers are playing way too much golf. They're competing too much, and it's part of this cycle. Roger, you know this, that and Ryan, with your work with some of the with No to Big Ace Tour, the college coaches are in a lot of cases college golf is driving it, because these kids are chasing rankings, and to chase rankings you need to play tournaments and you need to get in front of college coaches, and it's really not healthy. It's the research that we've been looking at is, like, for me, been very eye-opening, because I was one of those professionals who never took a day off. I felt like if I took 1 or 2 days off, I was losing my game. And, so to see that, some of these kids at 14, 15 years old should be taking months off from the game is really eye-opening. And I don't think parents and kids are, well educated to know that it's actually healthy to take time off. And we always say, okay, there's time for practice, there's time for tournaments, there's time for other sports, and there's time just to be a kid.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're really trying to promote through our program as well. But, we need to do that across the industry. And Roger, I know you guys are doing a great job with that, as well as at the Golf Performance Center. But it just, it's something that we really need to be messaging together and singing the same tune for these athletes for their own health and development.
Yeah,
It's
no
interesting.
doubt.
We were having this exact conversation before you came on about how we are moving into that, certainly Halloween, into Thanksgiving, into Christmas, New Year's, and the holiday season. And I was saying that as a parent, I get a grade of an F as far as really utilizing time off more than maybe 3 or 4 days really around those actual holidays. I'm curious, because I think I know the answer, but if you go take your actual top players on the national team, I have a hard time believing, Heather, they're taking more than 10 days off.
Yeah, they'll say they're taking more than that off, but I think I'm with you, Ryan. I mean, they're high performers, right? They have big goals, big dreams, D1 golf, professional golf, and they also love the game. So it's hard to take time off from something that you love. Right. And I loved practicing. I enjoyed the grind. Like, I couldn't wait to get to the golf course every day. So to peel back and say, okay, like, to have the discipline to be able to just say, no, I know I want to go to the golf course, but I know it's good if I go, play pick a ball with my friends and take a break. Like that's hard for teenagers to do, because they do love what they're doing. And so, it's that balance as well. And it takes a lot of discipline and maturity to be able to step away.
Yeah. It's funny. When I started the Golf Performance Center, I was in Florida, right? I mean, I grew up down south, and, to that point, I'm seeing all these young athletes who are playing year round and not reaching the potential. And I would say in some ways I probably was that athlete as well, because you're just going 365 24/7, right? And you're afraid to take time off. And I just knew that it had to be a better way, right? So when I started our academy in the Northeast, people go, "You're crazy, you're nuts." But it's like, I'm going, no, you need time off. You physically, mentally, just even development of skills, you need time away from just going out and playing on the golf course. And I would say our juniors were so skeptical, or people were so skeptical when we started this thing 20 plus years ago, but yet now it's repeated over and over and over. Kind of, as you mentioned, the periodization schedule, what you should do, how you should actually use that time, and what does it mean. And now we're seeing so much success with the players coming out going, oh, I didn't need to be in Florida. I didn't need to live in Florida. But so it's so important about the environment too. And that message around that, I think it is what's missing in our industry. Hopefully we can make a big shift in that, Heather.
Yeah. And, I think there's so many different ways to get to your goal, right? Like if you lined up all of the LPGA, PGA Tour players and you asked them what their journey was, like they're all different.
Mm-hmm.
And I would, I think it was a blessing that I grew up in Connecticut because I couldn't play year round, and not that I was very good in high school or even college for that matter, but golf is a learned game. And you can catch up, right? Like you don't have to start at 10 years old even. Look, Julie Inkster didn't start playing till she was 15. One of the best women to ever play the professional game, LPGA and World Golf Hall of Fame player. I didn't develop until I was a 28-year-old rookie. I was a rookie at the time that a lot of LPGA players now are retiring. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. And I think, right now kids are in such a hurry to get to their goal. Like they've got to learn that it's a journey, right? And everybody's journey is different. And that's in, developing athletes who thrive. I is individual development. And it happens at different times, for every player, but there's no rush, right? Professional golf will always be there.
Heather, do you think, maybe this is a hot topic, and I apologize if I put you in a hot seat here.
It's okay.
Yeah, do you think NIL has a lot to do with this now? I mean, from the college game in this perspective, like these kids now are coming up and growing up with this carrot dangled very quickly of, oh, you're going to get your tour card if you go to these schools and these best schools. And also you have this opportunity to make money in college now. Do you think that's actually getting in the way or helping? What do you think?
Yeah, it's a tough topic, Roger, and certainly I am not an expert on NIL. I probably should learn more about it than I actually do, if I'm being wholly honest. But I think my hope is that it might keep some players in school in amateur a little bit longer, because then they don't have the pressure to go out and make money right away. There are some junior golfers who may, who their families may be looking for them to support them, when they become professionals. And that's a really difficult place for an athlete to be in. So I think my hope is that, with the NIL dollars, it's a whole different world for these athletes, but maybe it'll help more players finish college, right, before they make the jump, because they don't have to worry about the finances. And I think that, I don't know what the research is on which schools send the most kids to the professional game, but I actually don't, from my own experience, it didn't matter. I mean, I went to Yale, where we had a young program, and we didn't really compete that much, and we didn't practice that much. And again, I go back to, like, there's so many ways to do it. You don't have to go to a golf powerhouse school. That'll probably get me in hot water, but to be a professional golfer, right? To be a tour winner, you can plot your own path in your own journey.
What was the biggest, let's get into a little more rapid fire here, because I know Roger and I have a lot of questions.
Yeah.
We appreciate your time. As you get these 1,000 athletes, and obviously there's not one answer to this, but as a national team, we went from a system of everyone was an individual with maybe their own team to now a national team joining other countries. Was there one area that the USGA National Development Program immediately said, wow, I'm really surprised by X? It seems like the majority of these players that are now on the national team were lacking or didn't know about, or was there an area that this program really brought a weakness of our country's players to the forefront?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I think what we've learned is that a little goes a long way. That, kids, whether they're on the national team or in the grant program or on the state teams, like, they're so hungry for knowledge, and they're already so good, right? They only need a little bit, right? It's we had one athlete who was on one of our webinars, and I think Coach Zambri was talking about picking targets into greens. And then the next week she won a tournament with her partner in a 4-ball event, and emailed Coach Zambri and said, I took what you taught me on that webinar and we put it into practice and we won. Right. So what we're not really we're like not in the instruction business. We're trying to help these kids take what they already know and like their technique and their tactical stuff and transfer it to the golf course to learn how to play better golf and shoot lower scores, as well as develop all the other things. But I think what junior golf in American golf may have been lacking is this sense of team. And, it's a very individual pursuit. Golf is, and in junior golf is becoming even more and more individual, I think, than even when I played junior golf. And I think bringing these athletes together where they can learn from each other, where the boys are learning from the girls are learning from the boys, and they're really coming together as a team. I think that's going to pay dividends in the long run for American golf. I mean, even on the PGA, LPGA tours, when an international player wins, right, all of their friends come out and congratulate them. We haven't necessarily had that on the American side to the same extent as the international. So I think the kids are really gravitating towards each other as teammates, where, now they're coming to our USGA championships and they might have finished up their match and now they're going out to watch their teammate play and cheer them on. So, I think that's going to be a differentiator for us.
Heather, where do the parents and where do the kids go again to learn about the program?
They can go to usndp.org or usga.org and then click on US National Development Program, and please go there and fill out the golf resume as a first step.
I got a couple more, and then we
okay.
can go. If you take the program, certainly the United States has been the dominant golf power in the world, especially in the men's game. If you take, and I know we have a very small sample size, but if essentially are the best players still where they came from for 100 years, which is the AJGA Rolex winners are still the AJGA Rolex winners, and now they're just also have national team next to their name. Is it still kind of just that good old club, or are you seeing players that would not be part of that are making their way onto the national team?
We are seeing players who don't necessarily play your typical junior circuit make their way into the state teams, into our grant program, and onto our national team. Again, there's a lot of reasons why athletes can't play outside of their state, and this is why we've built the state program to keep kids in state longer and developing. And whether it's financial resources or if they have two parents that work and there's 3 other kids in the house, right? Not everybody can play a national schedule. I think what we're finding is that there's so many good players in every pocket of the United States, and we're trying to identify them through our program. We put in, through our collaboration with the AJGA, 302 players into AJGA tournaments this year. 22% of them finished in the top 10. So, right, that tells me there's just so many good players out there, and it's our job to find them and develop them and get them on a path moving forward. So, AJGA runs wonderful tournaments, and I think we're in the process too of doing some research. So I don't know if it's going to be publishable research, but we are doing some research using our partner Junior Golf Scoreboard, and looking at historical data and where kids were at 15, 16, 17 years old, and then where are they at 25, 26, 27. So I think we'll have a little bit more information on the progression and what tournaments those kids were playing, how often they were playing, and how that translated and their rankings translated into professional success later in life. So we've undergone like a 2-year process for that, but and still working, but hopefully we'll have some good data to share at some point.
Our research at the Nota Begay said that the AJGA was maybe for 3% of the junior golfer, and 90% of the junior golfer really, especially, listen, if you're in Florida, California, Texas, your state program's awesome and it's a good way to play. The reality is there's a lot of places where if you try to play your state program, there's 2 kids that show up to play in an event. We found that 97% of the junior golfers are underserved in where they should play, how they should play, how do they develop. 97% is a pretty big number. Certainly,
Yes.
no one can question the AJGA. They do an amazing job. The reality is their tournaments are based on previous performance in most cases. There obviously are ways you can get in, but the most of the field is based on what you've done on that before, and they do an amazing job. And certainly we understand that they are the gold standard. For that other 97%, and we've obviously filled as much of that void as we can, because all our events are overfilled as well in that next tier as we try to develop players. I understand we don't want kids playing 36 events a year. That's silly. That's overplaying. But could this country could it benefit from a tour that is really able to serve that larger body that really love golf, really want to play golf, are ready to give their heart and soul to golf, but maybe they just don't have a place where they can really compete?
Yeah, I mean that's a pretty staggering number, 97%. I wasn't aware that it was that big, but I think we've been working closely with LPGA's tour and underrated Peggy Kirk Bell tour, and we love when you elevate athletes to us, right, who are ready for that next level of tournament. And I think we've been successful in finding some AJGA opportunities, again through our partnership with them, to give them some more competitive opportunities. But I do think there is probably an untapped opportunity, Ryan, across the other junior tours to collaborate together. That's golf is expensive, right? It's hard to travel outside of your area to continue to develop. And I think they're maybe it's time for a little summit and getting together and talking about how we can all work together to help impact even more athletes in their collective development. Golf is such a wonderful game, and it teaches you way more than just playing the game. It teaches you about yourself, about other people, life skills, how to overcome adversity, resilience. I think that's one of the biggest skills that you learn from golf is resilience, because you lose certainly much more than you win in golf. So we know that there's so many talented athletes out there. We're not going to be able to get to them all through our program, but certainly I think we would love to collaborate in other ways, different ways, and put our heads together on how we can raise the whole boat of junior golf in the United States.
Well, you certainly are doing your part. We had you for a long time today. We appreciate your patience, but we get you maybe once a year, and we know so many of our listeners, their dream is to obviously have their son or daughter make it to that level. So thank you so much for your time today and answering so many questions.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Roger. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Heather.
Have a great day.
Thanks, you too. Bye.
Talk soon.
Well, certainly, Roger, that is a wonderful interview, answering a lot of questions for our viewers. Let's kind of start with your biggest takeaway. I know we're running long today, but I think that this topic deserves it. We'll give it another 5 minutes. I'm just real curious for your takeaway and your thoughts. Well,
my thoughts is exactly on board with the idea of having a national program, right? And what they're doing, it's a daunting undertaking. It's been years in its development. I think it's going to be extremely difficult. One of the things that I'm struggling with a little bit is, the identification of the talent that's out there. To your point, there's a lot of golfers that are not playing AJGA events. There's a lot of golfers who are not playing in international or nationally recognized events that deserve, some recognition or, understanding. So, but I don't think that they can, serve everyone, right? I just don't think any national program anywhere in the world can serve everyone. And so I don't think, and with being in the US and as big as the market is and how many country clubs are out there and how many golf coaches that are, world beating golf coaches, right? I think players are coming to the game with kind of their own teams. as she said, as she mentioned, and I think it's going to be difficult to pry them away from that. Now, I think the reward is, hey, I'm on the national team. I was selected, and it's great to play there. For the top tier, player, I don't know how much it's going to do for them, right? I mean, outside of playing for their country and maybe on the U.S. Olympic team, and it doesn't really bode that well for Ryder Cup team or Solheim Cup team. I mean, it's apples and oranges. So, but I just love the fact that Heather's been enthusiastic. She's doing an amazing job of putting the right people in the places to help these programs launch. I still go, we can give tournaments and we can do tournaments, but what do you do in between the events that's actually developing these young people that we need to do? And I know, Ryan, you and I talk ad nauseum about player development, and it's great to give them an event to play in, but what do you do in between the events? That's development. That's taking something away. It's almost like taking a quiz or a test in school and saying, okay, how did I do? Yeah, you pass or fail, but it's not pass or fail. It's like, what did I learn? What am I learning? And how do I get better from that? And I think that's the overall theme here, is like, how do we actually help the greater market understand what development looks like? And we just don't have that right now. And hopefully, sometime in the near future, we may see something, launch and land in the U.S. Next year.
Well, I certainly think that PDI is on that road. Certainly on our tour, PDI was a gigantic part of the 10,000 plus players that were introduced to the self-assessment. Obviously, we then had the events where we provided an exemption to our World Championship, which, by the way, is the next first 2 weeks in November in Louisiana. So we will see those 8 kids that made it to the World Championship strictly on their PDI score. That is going to be wild to watch how they compete, how that transforms, how all that practice and PDI transfers over to the championship. So listen, PDI, it's a self-proven. We see colleges every day adopting it as part of their routine. We're seeing more and more juniors adopt it. So to your point, that there is a system out there. It's now just about getting the masses to adopt it as part of their weekly practice. I think we do a good job on this podcast of explaining to parents that the biggest problem in junior golf is not whether it's this tournament, that tournament, whether there's a national team, not national team. It's that kids just don't know how to practice. Kids don't know what to do in between their events to try to get better. And if we could solve that problem, which PDI does, then you'd see massive improvement. The reality is, we talk about it, kids think they're putting in time because the watch says they were at the golf course for a certain amount of time. Unfortunately, that doesn't mean that they've done anything other than spend time at the golf course. So we're confident we're on the road to that. Certainly, Roger, Heather, and what the time and effort the USGA, believe me, their mind and heart is in the right spot. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I love the phrase she said, a little goes a long way. And I think, the more that we can get that out there in the greater ether, if you will, I think the better. And I think these young athletes will actually get better because they'll be working on the right things.
All right, so that is going to do it for today. Once again, the next time we are with you, we will be from the Junior Golf Hub Nota Begay, the 3rd World Championship in Louisiana. 160 of the best players in the world competing for both men's and women's, boys and girls crowns in 4 different divisions. So certainly we look forward to meeting you there as well, Roger, and continuing to see what the best of the best in junior golf have to offer this year. For our director, producer, Michael Nick, for Roger Nick, I'm Ryan Burr saying until next time, so long from the Hub of Junior Golf Podcast.